I am Ambrose, 34 years old, and I never thought my family would turn on me like this. For years, I worked hard in IT while quietly paying for my sister Laura's rent, her son Tyler's private school, and more. Last Christmas, I arrived bearing gifts and warmth, only to have Tyler shove his plate at me saying, "Mom says you should serve, not eat." Their laughter cut deep. When I walked out, I didn't know I was starting a war over years of financial abuse. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. If you've ever had a family member take advantage of your generosity, you'll want to see how I finally stood up for myself. My family story begins in a small town outside of Boston, where my parents ran a local hardware store that constantly teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Despite their financial struggles, my childhood memories are mostly warm ones. Dad would let me stack inventory after school, teaching me the value of hard work. Mom always managed to make our small house feel like a home, even when money was tight. Laura came along when I was 3 years old. From the beginning, the dynamic was clear. She was the princess of the family. While I was expected to help at the store, Laura was allowed to focus on dance lessons and social activities. My parents always explained it away. "She's younger. She's a girl. She's more sensitive than you." I accepted these explanations because that's what good sons do. When I was 17, our family faced a financial crisis. The big box hardware store that opened on the edge of town was killing our family business. My college fund, modest as it was, became the sacrifice. "It's just for a little while, Ambrose," Dad promised as he withdrew the $8,000 I'd been counting on. "Once business picks up, we'll pay you back double." That money never returned, nor did the store's prosperity. Instead of attending the state university as planned, I worked day shifts at the family store and night shifts at a gas station. Over 3 years, I took community college classes whenever I could fit them in, eventually transferring to complete my computer science degree. Those years taught me discipline and grit. While friends partied and enjoyed college life, I was debugging code at 3 in the morning after exhausting shifts. My determination paid off when I landed an entry-level IT job at a growing tech company. Through consistent performance and countless late nights, I climbed to senior systems administrator within 6 years. Meanwhile, Laura's path looked very different. Our parents scraped together money to send her to the state university, but she dropped out after 3 semesters, claiming it wasn't the right environment for her creativity. What followed was a series of dead-end jobs and boyfriends who never seemed to last. When she was 26, she met Kevin, a charming real estate developer who drove a fancy car and made big promises. They married quickly, and within a year, Tyler was born. For a while, it seemed Laura had found her fairy tale ending. Kevin's business was booming in the pre-recession housing market, and they lived in a sprawling house with all the trappings of success. Laura frequently reminded us all how well she had done for herself. Then the housing market crashed. Kevin's business collapsed almost overnight, revealing a mountain of debt. Their marriage couldn't withstand the stress, and by the time Tyler was 5, they were divorced. Kevin moved to Florida to escape his creditors, effectively disappearing from Tyler's life and leaving minimal child support that rarely arrived on time. Laura and Tyler moved back to our hometown, wounded and broke. That's when the first call came from my mother. "Ambrose, honey, we need to talk about your sister," Mom said, her voice carrying that tone I'd grown to recognize, the one that preceded a request for money. "She and Tyler have nowhere to go. Your father and I would take them in, but you know our spare room is too small, and Tyler needs his own space. He's a growing boy." I already knew what was coming. "What do you need, Mom?" "Laura found a nice 2-bedroom apartment, but she needs help with the security deposit and first month's rent, just until she gets back on her feet." That first request was for $2,000. I sent it the same day. I told myself it was temporary, just to help my sister through a crisis. I didn't know I was setting a precedent that would continue for years. The requests kept coming. Tyler's private school tuition because the public schools here just don't challenge him enough. Laura's car repairs. Medical bills not covered by insurance. Each time, my parents acted as intermediaries, assuring me that Laura was almost financially stable. 5 years passed this way. My monthly contributions to Laura and Tyler's life averaged around $1,500, money that never found its way into my retirement account or savings. I calculated once that I had given over $90,000 to support them. Whenever I tried to discuss reducing my support, family gatherings became tense, with Laura making tearful exits and my parents pulling me aside to explain how I was the successful one who should help those less fortunate in the family. My girlfriend Melanie was the first person to name what was happening. We met at a tech conference 3 years ago, and her straightforward perspective was refreshing. "Ambrose, this isn't normal family support," she said after witnessing one of Laura's phone calls demanding money for Tyler's summer camp. "They're taking advantage of you. There's a difference between helping and enabling." I knew she was right, but family loyalty runs deep. The thought of cutting off my nephew from opportunities or seeing my sister struggle kept me writing checks. Still, Melanie's words planted a seed of resentment that grew each time Laura bought new designer clothes, while claiming she couldn't afford Tyler's school lunch program. Despite these tensions, I always looked forward to Christmas. It was the one time of year when family discord was set aside in favor of tradition and togetherness. Each year, I bought thoughtful gifts for everyone, especially Tyler. Last year it was the gaming console he had been begging for, even though Laura had told me not to spend too much on him, then complained when her gift card wasn't for the high-end boutique she preferred. This past Christmas, I was particularly excited. Melanie and I had been dating for 3 years, and I was planning to propose on New Year's Eve. I wanted my family to see how happy we were together. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs from previous holidays. Laura's backhanded compliments about my boring but stable job, Tyler's increasing sense of entitlement as he got older, but I wanted to believe in the magic of Christmas and the strength of family bonds. How naive I was. Christmas morning started with such promise. Melanie and I woke early in my apartment, exchanged our personal gifts, and then began preparing dishes for the family dinner. I made my famous garlic mashed potatoes while Melanie baked her grandmother's pecan pie. The kitchen filled with delicious smells and easy conversation as Christmas music played softly in the background. "Do you think Tyler will like the new laptop?" I asked Melanie while wrapping the expensive gift I'd purchased for my now 11-year-old nephew. Between his private school and growing interest in computer programming, I thought it might nurture his potential. Melanie hesitated before answering. "It's very generous, Ambrose. Just don't expect too much gratitude. You know how he can be." I brushed off her concern. "It's Christmas. Everyone's nicer at Christmas." We arrived at my parents' house at 2 in the afternoon, arms loaded with gifts and food. Mom greeted us with hugs and exclamations over the pie. Dad helped carry things in, giving me a firm handshake that conveyed more affection than he typically expressed verbally. The house looked festive with the artificial tree Dad had bought on clearance years ago, now adorned with decades of collected ornaments. "Laura and Tyler should be here any minute," Mom said, checking her watch. "You know your sister, always running a bit late." 45 minutes later, we heard Laura's car pull into the driveway. Tyler burst through the door first, immediately asking if we had started opening presents yet. At 11 years old, he had his mother's blonde hair and his absent father's tall build, but the entitlement in his expression was entirely learned behavior. Laura followed, talking loudly on her phone about New Year's Eve plans at an exclusive restaurant I knew she couldn't afford. She held up a finger to silence any greetings until she finished her conversation. When she finally acknowledged us, she gave Melanie and me quick, perfunctory hugs. "Traffic was absolutely insane," she announced, though we all lived within 15 minutes of each other, and Tyler was impossible to get moving this morning. The gift exchange proceeded awkwardly. Tyler opened the laptop with minimal enthusiasm, immediately pointing out that it wasn't the exact model his friend Jacob had. "This one has less storage," he complained, setting it aside without a thank you. Laura examined her gift card to a mid-range department store with a tight smile. "This is practical. Thanks, I guess." When Tyler opened Melanie's thoughtful gift of coding books, he didn't even try to hide his disappointment. "Books? Seriously? Who gives books for Christmas?" "Tyler," I said gently. "Those are to help with your programming interests. Melanie picked them specially for you." Laura jumped in before Tyler could respond. "He's just being honest, Ambrose. Not everyone gets excited about educational gifts. She turned to my girlfriend with a condescending smile. Melanie, when you have children of your own someday, you'll understand what actually makes them happy. I saw Melanie's shoulders tense, but she maintained her composure. My mother quickly changed the subject, announcing it was time for dinner. The dining room table was set with Mom's best china and the silver flatware that came out only for special occasions. Dad sat at the head of the table, Mom at the foot. Laura and Tyler took one side, while Melanie and I sat across from them. The table was laden with traditional dishes: turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, and the sides Melanie and I had brought. Dad stood to offer a brief toast to family and another year together. May we all find happiness and success in the coming year. It was a generic holiday sentiment, but for a moment, as we all raised our glasses, I felt that familiar hope that this time things would be different. As the oldest son, I had always been given the responsibility of serving the food. It was a family tradition that I had never questioned. I stood and began filling plates, starting with my mother, then Laura and Tyler, my father, Melanie, and finally myself. I took care to give Tyler his favorite dark meat and extra mashed potatoes, just as he liked. Throughout the meal, Tyler's behavior grew increasingly disruptive. He complained about the turkey being dry, though it was perfectly cooked. He interrupted adult conversations with demands for attention. Laura did nothing to correct him, instead laughing at his rudeness, as if it were charming precociousness. Then came the moment that would change everything. As I reached for the gravy boat to add a little more to my potatoes, Tyler suddenly shoved his plate toward me, sending a splash of cranberry sauce onto the tablecloth. "I need more stuffing," he announced. "Mom says you should serve, not eat. That's your job." The table went silent for a second before erupting in laughter. Laura's was the loudest, a vindictive sound that held years of resentment. "Kids say the darndest things," she managed between laughs. My father chuckled uncomfortably. My mother put her hand to her mouth, giggling behind it. Only Melanie remained stone-faced, her eyes wide with disbelief. I sat there, fork suspended in midair, as the weight of Tyler's words sank in. This wasn't just a child's rudeness. This was a message, one that Laura had been carefully cultivating. In their eyes, I wasn't family. I was the help, the wallet, the servant. I placed my fork down carefully on my plate. The laughter gradually subsided as they noticed my expression. "Ambrose," my mother started, "he's just a child. He doesn't mean anything by it." But the damage was done. I could feel something breaking inside me, not just my heart, but the chains of obligation that had bound me to this dynamic for years. Without a word, I stood up, placed my napkin beside my barely touched food, and walked to the coat closet in the hallway. Melanie followed immediately, concern etched on her face. "We're leaving?" she whispered. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. "Good," she said firmly, reaching for her own coat. As we put on our outerwear, I heard Laura's voice from the dining room. "Oh, come on. Ambrose is being dramatic. Tyler was just joking around." We left without another word, the sound of the closing door cutting off whatever excuse my mother was beginning to formulate. The drive home was silent. Melanie reached over to hold my hand, offering wordless support. Christmas lights blurred through my unshed tears as we passed decorated houses with families inside who hopefully treated each other with more respect than mine had shown me. "You didn't deserve that," Melanie finally said as we pulled into my apartment complex. "None of it." I nodded, finding my voice at last. "I know." That night, I sat on my living room couch, staring at the small Christmas tree Melanie had helped me decorate. The colorful lights blinked in rhythmic patterns, but they brought none of the joy I'd associated with the holiday since childhood. Melanie had gone to bed early, sensing I needed space to process what had happened. My phone remained silent for hours. No apology calls, no concerned text messages, just silence that spoke volumes about my family's perspective on the incident. "They don't even think they did anything wrong," I said aloud to the empty room. Just before midnight, my phone finally chimed with a message. My heart lifted momentarily, hoping for an apology. Instead, I found a text from my mother that knocked the wind out of me. You embarrassed us all with your behavior today. Stay away until you can apologize and act like family. I read the message 3 times, unable to believe what I was seeing. I was expected to apologize? For what? For not smiling while being humiliated? For leaving quietly instead of creating a scene? Melanie found me still staring at the phone. She must have heard me pacing and come to check. When I showed her the message, her expression hardened. "This is unbelievable," she said, sitting beside me. "They've completely twisted reality. You know that, right? This is what manipulative people do when they're called out. They flip the script and make you the villain." Her words crystallized something I'd been feeling, but couldn't articulate. For years, I'd been cast in a role I never auditioned for, the endless provider, the emotional punching bag, the one who could be mistreated without consequences. "I'm done," I whispered. Then, with more conviction, "I'm done." Melanie squeezed my hand. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath and typed a response I'd been holding back for years. "Sure. The payments stay away too." My thumb hovered over the send button for a long moment before pressing down. There was no going back now. Within minutes, my phone exploded with activity. First came a call from Laura, which I declined. Then another, and another. My parents' numbers followed in quick succession. Text messages began flooding in, first angry, then panicked as my meaning sank in. "Laura, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Laura, you can't do this to us. Laura, answer your phone. Mom, Ambrose, call me immediately. Mom, you're overreacting. Mom, think about Tyler. He's just a child. Dad, son, let's talk about this like adults." The barrage continued, but I turned off my phone and placed it face down on the coffee table. For the first time in years, I would sleep without being accessible to their demands. Morning brought no clarity, just exhaustion and a dull headache. When I finally turned my phone back on, I had 27 missed calls and 43 text messages. Scrolling through them revealed an evolution in tone, from indignation to disbelief to the beginning stages of bargaining. Laura's latest messages were frantic. "Rent is due in 3 days. You know I don't have all of it. Tyler will lose his spot at Westbrook if tuition isn't paid by the 5th. Are you really going to punish a child for something I said?" My parents had shifted strategies as well. "Mom, I know you're upset, but family helps family. That's what we've always done. Dad, let's sit down and work out a reasonable arrangement. No need for extreme measures." Melanie read some of the messages over my shoulder and shook her head. "Notice there's still no apology anywhere, just panic that the gravy train is stopping." She was right. Not one message acknowledged how I'd been treated or showed remorse for the years of taking advantage. It was all about what they would lose without my financial support. I spent that day drafting and redrafting a longer response, trying to find the right words to establish boundaries without burning bridges completely. In the end, I sent a simple message to my parents only. "I need some time. I'll reach out when I'm ready to talk." I blocked Laura's number entirely, unable to face more of her manipulative tactics. 3 days passed in blessed silence. I returned to work after the holiday break, trying to focus on normal life. On the 4th day, as I was walking through the office parking lot toward the building entrance, I heard someone call my name. Laura was leaning against my car, arms crossed, face set in the expression I recognized from childhood whenever she didn't get her way. My stomach dropped. "You're ignoring me," she said accusingly as I approached. "Very mature. I'm going to work, Laura. This isn't the place." "Where is the place, then? You won't answer my calls. You won't respond to texts. Meanwhile, I'm about to be evicted, and Tyler's school is threatening to give away his spot." Several colleagues walked past, poorly disguising their interest in our conversation. I lowered my voice. "I told Mom and Dad I need time. That includes you." Her voice rose to ensure others could hear. "Time for what? To abandon your family? To punish a child because your feelings got hurt over a little joke?" "It wasn't a joke," I said firmly, meeting her gaze directly. "And it wasn't just about Christmas. It's about years of taking and taking without appreciation or respect. So, this is about gratitude? You want us to grovel because you help out sometimes? Is that what family means to you, keeping score? A small crowd of co-workers had gathered at a discreet distance, witnessing my personal life unravel in the professional space I'd always kept separate from family drama. This conversation is over, Laura. I have to go to work. As I tried to move past her, she grabbed my arm. You've turned into a real jerk, you know that? Wait until I tell Mom and Dad how you're treating me. They always said I was the one with the big heart in the family. Now everyone will see it. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Tell them whatever you want. It changes nothing. As I walked away, she called after me. You'll regret this, Ambrose. Family is forever, and you're throwing it away over nothing. I didn't turn back, but her words followed me throughout the day. Was I overreacting? Was I the villain in this story? But every time doubt crept in, I remembered Tyler's face as he shoved that plate toward me, the absolute certainty that he was entitled to my servitude. I remembered the laughter, the years of financial drain, the way my needs always came last. No, I wasn't overreacting. I was finally reacting appropriately to years of mistreatment. Morning brought no clarity, just exhaustion and a dull headache. When I finally turned my phone back on, I had 27 missed calls and 43 text messages. Scrolling through them revealed an evolution in tone, from indignation to disbelief to the beginning stages of bargaining. Melanie remained my rock, neither pushing me to reconcile nor encouraging permanent estrangement. Whatever you decide, I support you, she said. Just make sure you're deciding from strength, not guilt. On a Saturday afternoon, as Melanie and I were returning from grocery shopping, I spotted my father's truck parked in a visitor spot outside my apartment building. He was sitting inside, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. Do you want me to stay or give you privacy? Melanie asked as we pulled alongside. Stay, I said immediately. Please. Dad got out when he saw us, looking older than I remembered from just a week ago. His shoulders were hunched, his expression weathered beyond his 61 years. Ambrose, he nodded, then glanced at Melanie. Miss Melanie. Hello, Mr. Sullivan, she replied politely. An awkward silence stretched between us in the parking lot. Let's go inside, I finally suggested. Once in my apartment, Dad declined coffee or water, perching uncomfortably on the edge of my sofa. His work boots, though clean, looked out of place on my carpet. Your mother doesn't know I'm here, he began, removing his cap and turning it in his hands. She's still pretty upset. About what exactly? I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. That I left dinner? Or that I stopped writing checks? Dad winced. That's not fair, son, isn't it? Because from where I'm sitting, the only time my family gets truly upset with me is when I stop providing something they want. Dad's face flushed, but then something unexpected happened. Instead of defending himself or my mother, his expression crumpled. I found something, he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out several folded sheets of paper. Bank statements, Laura's. Confused, I took the papers he offered. As I unfolded them, Melanie moved closer to look over my shoulder. Where did you get these? I asked. She left her laptop open at our house. After everything that happened, I got suspicious. Started looking around. He looked down at his hands. Never thought I'd be the kind of father who snoops through his daughter's things. But here we are. I scanned the statements, at first not understanding what I was seeing. Then patterns emerged. Regular deposits of varying amounts, many matching the exact sums I had given for specific expenses. But the withdrawals told a different story. She spent Tyler's tuition money on a spa weekend? I said incredulously, pointing to a series of charges. Dad nodded grimly. And that money for his dental work went to designer purses. There's more. Keep looking. Page after page revealed a pattern of deception. Laura had been using the money I provided for her and Tyler's necessities on luxury items, vacations, expensive restaurants, and clothing. Meanwhile, she had been telling our parents that I was giving her far less than the actual amounts, claiming she was struggling to make ends meet on the pittance her brother provided. She told us Tyler has learning disabilities that require special programs, Dad said, his voice hollow. Said you refused to help with those costs, so she was working 2 jobs to cover them. Your mother and I have been helping with groceries and utilities, because Laura said you only paid part of the rent and none of the other expenses. The betrayal hit me in waves. Not just Laura's lies, but my parents' willingness to believe the worst of me. "And you never thought to ask me about any of this?" I asked. "You just assumed I was shortchanging my sister and nephew?" Dad had the grace to look ashamed. Laura always had a way of telling stories that made sense at the time. "Said you made her promise not to tell us how little you were actually helping, that you were trying to look generous to the family while actually being tight-fisted. And that sounded like me to you?" My voice cracked on the question. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. "She had explanations for everything. Said you resented her for having a child when you didn't. Said you were saving for a big house with Melanie and didn't want to waste money on family." Melanie made a small sound of disbelief beside me. "The worst part," Dad continued, "is that we gave her money too. Not as much as you, we don't have it, but enough that it hurt our retirement savings. We thought we were making up for what you wouldn't provide." I sat back, trying to process it all. "So what changed? Why look into her stories now?" "That Christmas dinner," Dad said. "The look on your face when Tyler said that about serving. It didn't match what Laura had been telling us about you being selfish. And then when you said the payments would stop, the way she panicked. It didn't add up." He leaned forward, eyes pleading. "I'm not asking you to keep supporting Laura. God knows she's taken advantage enough. But your mother and we're getting older. The store barely breaks even most months. We were counting on having your help eventually, when we can't work anymore." And there it was. The real reason for his visit. Not just to reveal Laura's deception, but to ensure his own financial safety net remained intact. "So you want me to keep supporting you and Mom, just not Laura?" I clarified. Dad hesitated, then nodded. "We're not like Laura. We wouldn't waste your help." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at nothing in particular. Behind me I could feel the weight of my father's expectation and Melanie's concerned gaze. "I need to think about all this," I finally said. "I can't make any promises right now." Dad stood, replacing his cap. "I understand. Just don't punish us for Laura's mistakes. We're still your parents." After he left, I called my financial advisor. It was time to get a clear picture of exactly how much supporting my family had cost me over the years. The numbers were staggering. Beyond the direct payments, the lost opportunity for investment growth meant I had effectively sacrificed hundreds of thousands in potential retirement savings. "You've been financially abused," Melanie said bluntly as we reviewed the figures. "There's no other way to put it." That night, I drafted a lengthy email to my entire family. I detailed exactly how much I had given, where I had been told it was going, and how it had affected my own financial security. I established clear boundaries moving forward. No more open-ended support, no more guilt-based requests, no more being treated as the family ATM. It was the hardest letter I'd ever written, but as I clicked send, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in years, I was standing up for myself, not just reacting to their needs and demands. Whatever happened next, I knew I couldn't go back to the way things were. 3 days after sending my email, I received a terse message from my mother asking me to come to their house Sunday afternoon to discuss the situation as a family. My stomach churned at the prospect, but I knew this confrontation was inevitable and necessary. "Do you want me to come with you?" Melanie asked as I prepared to leave. Part of me wanted her support, but another part needed to face my family on my own. "I think this is something I need to do myself," I told her, "but thank you for offering." Before leaving, I gathered all the financial records I had meticulously organized over the past week: bank statements, copies of checks, text messages requesting money, and a spreadsheet showing the total amounts given over 5 years. I wasn't going into this discussion unprepared. When I arrived at my parents' modest ranch-style home, 3 cars were already in the driveway: my parents', Laura's, and surprisingly, my Aunt Patricia's, my mother's sister, who lived an hour away. I hadn't expected an audience for this family drama. Mom opened the door before I could knock, her expression a careful blank. "Everyone's in the living room," she said by way of greeting. The atmosphere inside was thick with tension. Dad sat in his recliner, looking uncomfortable. Laura perched on the edge of the couch, arms crossed defensively. Tyler was unexpectedly present, sitting in the corner playing on his phone, occasionally glancing up with curiosity. Aunt Patricia sat quietly in the dining room chair that had been brought in to accommodate the gathering. No one spoke as I took the remaining seat, placing my folder of documents on the coffee table in front of me. "Thank you for coming, Ambrose," Mom finally said, her voice formal as if addressing a stranger. "We thought it was important to clear the air after your allegations." The word choice made my jaw tighten. "They're not allegations, Mom. They're facts, fully documented." I tapped the folder for emphasis. Laura immediately went on the offensive. "So you've been keeping receipts on family help? Who does that? Only someone looking to throw it back in our faces eventually." "I keep records of all my finances," I replied evenly. "That's just responsible money management." "We're not here to attack each other," Dad interjected, throwing a warning look at Laura. "We need to sort this out like adults." I took a deep breath. "I agree. So let's start with the truth. Laura, would you like to explain to Mom and Dad how you spent the tuition money I sent for Tyler last September?" Laura's face flushed. "I don't have to justify every penny to you. Sometimes expenses shift and money needs to be reallocated." "Reallocated to Nordstrom and a weekend at Stony Creek Spa?" I pulled out the bank statement Dad had shown me, along with my own record of the transfer specifically designated for Tyler's fall tuition. Mom gasped softly, looking between Laura and the documents. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under as a single mother," Laura snapped. "Sometimes I need self-care to be a good parent. Tyler doesn't mind public school anyway." From the corner, Tyler's head shot up. "What? You said Westbrook had a fire and had to close for renovations. You said that's why I had to change schools." The room fell silent as we all absorbed this new revelation. Laura had been lying not just to us, but to her own son. "Tyler, honey, it's complicated," Laura began, but I cut her off. "Actually, it's not complicated at all." I opened my folder and laid out documents one by one on the coffee table. "Here are copies of every check and transfer I've sent for specific expenses over the past 5 years. And here," I placed down another stack, "are the bank records showing where that money actually went." My mother picked up the papers with trembling hands. As she flipped through them, her face paled. "Laura, is this true? All these expenses? Hair extensions? A weekend in Atlantic City?" "Don't act so shocked, Mom," Laura said bitterly. "You and Dad have been helping me too. Did you think your money was only going to bills and Tyler's needs?" "We trusted you," Dad said, his voice low and dangerous. "We've been dipping into our retirement to help you while you've been, what? Living it up on our sacrifices?" "Oh, please," Laura rolled her eyes. "Retirement? The store barely makes enough to keep the lights on. You were going to end up depending on Ambrose anyway. I just cut out the middleman." Her callousness stunned even me. Tyler had abandoned his phone entirely now, watching the adults with wide eyes as his mother's deceptions unraveled. Aunt Patricia, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "Laura, do you hear yourself? Your brother and parents have been supporting you for years, and you're acting entitled to their money rather than grateful for their help." "Stay out of this, Aunt Pat," Laura snapped. "You don't know anything about my situation." "I know enough," Patricia replied calmly. "I know your brother has been paying your rent while you buy designer clothes. I know your parents have been helping with utilities while you take spa weekends. The question is, when were you planning to stand on your own 2 feet? Laura stood up, face flushed with anger. "I don't have to listen to this. Come on, Tyler, we're leaving." "Sit down," Dad commanded in a tone I hadn't heard since childhood. "You don't get to walk away from this." To my surprise, Laura complied, sinking back onto the couch. "Ambrose," my mother said, still looking through the financial records, "these amounts. I had no idea. Laura told us you were giving her a few $100s here and there, not this." She pointed to the total at the bottom of my spreadsheet, her finger resting on the 6-figure sum. "I trusted that the money was going where I was told it would go," I said quietly. "For Tyler's education, for their housing, for necessities." "It was all for necessities," Laura insisted. "Just because you don't understand what it takes to raise a child doesn't mean you get to judge how I spend money." "Mom, Tyler's small voice cut through the tension. He had moved from his corner to stand near the coffee table, eyes fixed on the financial documents. Is that true? Uncle Ambrose has been paying for everything? Laura reached for him. Tyler, honey, it's complicated. Adults help each other out. Tyler stepped away from her grasp. But you said Uncle Ambrose was stingy. You said he only helped a little bit because he had to, not because he wanted to. The look of betrayal on Tyler's face was heartbreaking. Whatever Laura's faults, she was still his mother, and seeing her exposed as a liar was clearly devastating to him. Tyler, I said gently, the money isn't important. What matters is that we're family, and family should treat each other with respect. Like the respect you showed walking out of Christmas dinner? Laura countered. Dad slammed his hand down on the armrest of his chair. Enough, Laura. After seeing these records, I'm ashamed we didn't stand up for Ambrose at Christmas. That comment about him serving rather than eating, did you put that idea in Tyler's head? Laura's silence was answer enough. I want to know, I said, addressing my parents directly, how you could believe I was being stingy when I've been sending substantial amounts every month for years. Did you really think so little of me? Mom had the grace to look ashamed. Laura can be convincing. She'd tell us you had refused to help with something important, and we'd give her money thinking we were filling gaps you wouldn't cover. I never thought to verify her stories. And that text on Christmas night? I pressed, telling me to stay away until I could apologize. I was upset, Mom admitted. Laura was crying, saying you'd humiliated her in front of everyone by walking out. I reacted without thinking. Tyler, who had been listening intently, suddenly turned to Laura. Is that why you told me to say that thing about Uncle Ambrose serving? You said it would be a funny joke everyone would laugh at. Laura grabbed his arm. That's enough, Tyler. We're going home. No. Tyler pulled away, tears in his eyes. You lied to me. You made me be mean to Uncle Ambrose on purpose. Laura stood abruptly. I don't have to take this. You're all ganging up on me because I'm the only one brave enough to ask for what I need instead of suffering in silence. What you need versus what you want seem to be very different things, Aunt Patricia observed. Tyler, we're leaving. Now. Laura's voice left no room for argument. Tyler looked torn, glancing between his mother and the rest of the family. At 11 years old, he was old enough to understand something significant was happening but too young to fully grasp the years of manipulation and financial abuse being exposed. Can I come back later? He asked quietly, looking at my father. Before Dad could answer, Laura grabbed her purse and Tyler's arm. Don't you dare turn my son against me, she hissed at the room in general. This isn't over. The door slammed behind them, leaving a heavy silence in the living room. Mom was quietly crying. Dad looked shell-shocked. Aunt Patricia simply shook her head in disappointment. I'm sorry, Ambrose, Mom finally said. We should have trusted you more and Laura less. It wasn't enough, not nearly enough to make up for years of being taken advantage of while being painted as the villain, but it was a start. Where do we go from here? Dad asked, suddenly looking every one of his 61 years. I don't know, I answered honestly, but we can't go back to how things were. I won't be Laura's personal bank anymore, and I won't be treated like a servant rather than family. And us? Mom asked tentatively. Your father and I. We made mistakes, believing Laura's lies, but we're still your parents. I looked at them both. The people who had raised me, who had taken my college fund for the family business, who had always expected me to sacrifice for others while demanding little of my sister. There was love there, but also years of enabling behavior that had created this situation. I need time, I said finally, and if we're going to have a relationship moving forward, things need to change. No more asking for money for Laura, no more guilt trips, no more taking my support for granted. They nodded solemnly, and though no firm resolution was reached that day, something fundamental had shifted. For the first time, they were seeing the family dynamic through my eyes, and they didn't like what they saw. As I drove home, I felt neither triumph nor closure, just a weary relief that the truth was finally out, and a tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, something healthier could grow from the ashes of these revelations. 2 months after the family confrontation, Winter had given way to early spring. The emotional landscape had changed as dramatically as the physical one, with new boundaries taking root like the first green shoots pushing through thawed soil. I had started seeing a therapist, Dr. Marissa Jenkins, who specialized in family dynamics and financial abuse. Our weekly sessions helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't normal family support but systematic exploitation of my sense of obligation. Generosity should never be expected or demanded, she reminded me during one particularly difficult session. It should be freely given and gratefully received. Melanie and I had grown closer through the ordeal. Her unwavering support and clear perspective helped anchor me when guilt or uncertainty threatened my resolve. We were talking seriously about our future together, with plans for me to officially propose once I felt I had regained my financial and emotional footing. My contact with my parents had been limited to weekly phone calls, a boundary I established to give myself space while not cutting them off entirely. These conversations were stilted at first, but gradually became more natural as we carefully navigated our new relationship. Laura's situation had deteriorated rapidly without my financial support. Within weeks of our confrontation, she had been forced to downsize to a one-bedroom apartment in a less desirable neighborhood, with Tyler sleeping on a pull-out couch in the living room. His private school had indeed given away his spot when tuition wasn't paid, and he was now attending the local public middle school. Through my parents, I heard about Laura's escalating financial crisis. She had maxed out credit cards, taken out high-interest loans, and was now facing the consequences of years of financial irresponsibility. Part of me felt guilty, but Dr. Jenkins helped me recognize that these were natural consequences of Laura's own choices, not punishment I was inflicting. Your sister is an adult who made decisions, she reminded me. You didn't create this situation by stopping your support. She created it by becoming dependent on it and misusing it. Laura had taken to spreading her version of events throughout the extended family. According to my cousin Drew, she was telling anyone who would listen that I had abandoned her and Tyler out of petty revenge for a child's innocent comment. Some relatives believed her, sending me disappointed messages about family loyalty. Others, who had witnessed Laura's entitled behavior over the years, were more skeptical. The most surprising ally emerged in Aunt Patricia, who had been present at the confrontation. She had apparently seen similar dynamics play out in her own family and recognized the pattern immediately. She began quietly countering Laura's narrative, sharing the truth about the financial records and Laura's deceptions. Some people will believe what they want to believe, Aunt Patricia told me during a rare lunch meeting, but those who matter will see the truth eventually. My parents struggled with reduced contact with Tyler, who had always been the center of their grandparental affection. Mom would sometimes end our weekly calls in tears after mentioning that Laura was using Tyler as leverage, allowing visits only when they provided gifts or money. We made so many mistakes, Dad admitted during one call. With both of you, but especially with Laura. We never taught her to stand on her own. It's not too late, I suggested carefully. She needs to learn independence now more than ever. We're trying, he said. It's harder than we thought. She knows exactly which buttons to push. They began asking my advice on handling Laura's constant requests, a reversal of roles that felt both strange and validating. I suggested they consult with a financial advisor about protecting their retirement funds and establishing clear boundaries with Laura. To my surprise, they actually followed through, meeting with a professional who helped them create a sustainable plan that didn't involve draining their savings to support Laura's lifestyle. Freed from the financial and emotional drain of supporting my sister, I found unexpected growth in my career. The reduced stress and increased focus led to a promotion at work, ironically improving my financial situation just as I had stopped sharing it with Laura. The bitter thought occasionally crossed my mind that if I had established boundaries years earlier, I might have achieved this success sooner. 3 months after Christmas, my parents invited Melanie and me for dinner, the first family meal since the disastrous holiday. Laura was notably absent, having refused the invitation when she learned I would be there. The dinner was awkward but civil. Mom had prepared my favorite lasagna, a peace offering of sorts. Dad opened a bottle of good wine he'd been saving for a special occasion. We carefully avoided contentious topics, sticking to safe subjects like Melanie's work project and Dad's garden plans for spring. As we were preparing to leave, the doorbell rang. Mom answered it to find Tyler standing alone on the porch, out of breath and red-faced. "I rode my bike," he explained, glancing nervously behind him. "Mom doesn't know I'm here." My parents quickly ushered him inside, concerned about his unsupervised 3-mile journey. "Tyler, honey, does your mother know where you are?" Mom asked, already reaching for her phone. "Please don't call her yet," Tyler begged. "I just wanted to see Uncle Ambrose before he left." I was touched and confused by this unexpected visit. Tyler and I had always had a decent relationship, but we'd never been particularly close. The Christmas incident and subsequent family drama had seemingly created distance between us. "What's up, buddy?" I asked, kneeling slightly to meet his eye level, though at 11 he was already growing tall. Tyler fidgeted with his jacket zipper. "I wanted to say sorry. For Christmas. Mom told me to say that thing about serving, and I knew it wasn't nice, but I did it anyway because I wanted her to be happy with me." The simple apology, delivered with such earnest regret, caught me off guard. "Thank you, Tyler. That means a lot. And also," he continued, gaining confidence, "I want you to know I really like the laptop you got me. Mom made me act like I didn't, but it's awesome. I use it for my coding projects at school." This admission brought an unexpected lump to my throat. How many other genuine moments had been poisoned by Laura's manipulation over the years? "I'm glad you like it," I managed. "Maybe sometime you can show me what you're working on." Tyler nodded eagerly. "That would be cool. Mom says you're really good with computers." "Speaking of your mom," Melanie interjected gently, "she's probably worried about you. We should let her know you're safe." Tyler's face fell. "She's going to be super mad." Dad placed a reassuring hand on Tyler's shoulder. "Let me talk to her. I'll explain you just wanted to visit, and there's no need for her to be upset." While Dad made the call, Tyler asked quietly, "Are you not coming to family stuff anymore because of what I said?" "No, Tyler," I assured him. "Adult relationships are complicated. What happened at Christmas was just one small part of bigger issues between your mom and me. None of this is your fault. But Mom says you abandoned us because you're selfish." I chose my words carefully, aware of the delicate position. "I helped your mom for a long time because I care about both of you. But sometimes adults need to make hard decisions about how to use their money and time. It doesn't mean I don't care about you." Tyler seemed to consider this. "Mom says we had to move because you stopped helping us. Your mom is responsible for her own finances, just like I'm responsible for mine. The choices she makes are hers, not mine." It wasn't a complete explanation, but it was as honest as I could be without disparaging Laura to her son. Dad returned, looking resigned. "She's on her way to pick him up. She's not happy." The 20 minutes we waited for Laura were filled with Tyler enthusiastically showing me his latest coding project on his phone. Despite everything, I found myself genuinely impressed with his aptitude and creativity. There was so much potential in him, if only it could be nurtured properly. Laura's arrival was announced by the screech of tires in the driveway. She burst through the door without knocking, eyes wild with panic that quickly transformed to anger when she saw Tyler calmly sitting with me. "What is this?" she demanded. "Tyler, I've been worried sick. How dare you leave without telling me?" "I'm sorry, Mom," Tyler said, shrinking back. "I just wanted to see everyone. Get in the car. Now." Her tone left no room for argument. As Tyler gathered his things, Laura turned her fury on me. "I suppose you think this is funny? Encouraging him to sneak around behind my back?" "I had nothing to do with Tyler coming here," I said evenly. "But I'm glad he did. He's welcome to visit me any time." "That's not your decision to make," she snapped. "I'm his mother. I decide who he spends time with." "Laura," my mother interjected. "Tyler just wanted to see his uncle. There's no need to make this into a bigger issue." "Of course you'd take his side," Laura said bitterly. "Everyone takes Perfect Ambrose's side now." Tyler reappeared, looking miserable. "I'm ready, Mom." Laura grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the door. "We're never coming back here," she announced dramatically. "You've all chosen sides, and it's clear where your loyalty lies." After they left, We stood in stunned silence for a moment. "That poor boy," Melanie finally said. My mother wiped away a tear. "We should have done better by both our children," she said softly. "Especially Laura. Maybe then she wouldn't be this way." There was nothing to say to that. The damage had been done long ago, through years of different expectations and enabling. All we could do now was try to move forward with greater awareness and healthier boundaries. As Melanie and I drove home that night, I realized something important. Despite the pain and conflict, I felt lighter. The burden of resentment I'd carried for years was beginning to lift. I wasn't responsible for fixing Laura or making my parents understand. I was only responsible for my own choices and boundaries. For the first time in my adult life, that felt like enough. 1 year after the Christmas dinner that changed everything, I stood in my parents' kitchen, helping my father prepare the turkey, while Mom and Melanie worked on side dishes. The engagement ring on Melanie's finger caught the light as she chopped vegetables, a constant reminder of how much had changed in 12 months. I had proposed on her birthday in September, after careful financial planning that ensured we were starting our life together on solid ground. Without the drain of supporting Laura, I had been able to save for a modest but beautiful ring and begin building a down payment for our future home. "Ambrose, can you check if that timer went off?" Mom called, her hands deep in pie dough. The easy domesticity of the moment struck me, how different it felt from the tension-filled holidays of previous years. My relationship with my parents had slowly healed over months of honest conversations, boundary setting, and mutual effort. They had come to understand the harm caused by years of unequal expectations between Laura and me. And while they couldn't undo the past, they were committed to a healthier future. Laura's journey had been more complicated. The first 6 months after our confrontation were marked by escalating hostility. She refused to speak to me directly, communicating only through increasingly desperate demands relayed by our parents. When it became clear that my boundaries were firm, her anger had gradually given way to a grudging acceptance of her new financial reality. Necessity proved to be an effective teacher. By summer, Laura had secured a full-time administrative position at a local insurance office, her first stable employment in years. She complained constantly about the work, the pay, and the indignity of having a boss, but she showed up every day and gradually began rebuilding her financial independence. Tyler had perhaps shown the most remarkable growth. After initial struggles adjusting to public school, he had found his niche in the computer science club and made genuine friends who shared his interests rather than his mother's perceived status. Our relationship had strengthened through occasional weekend visits that Laura reluctantly permitted, during which I mentored him in coding projects and provided the male guidance his absent father had never offered. The doorbell rang, interrupting my reflections. Mom wiped her hands on her apron, looking nervous. That must be them. This would be the first time Laura had agreed to attend a family gathering where I was present since last Christmas. The negotiations to make this happen had been delicate, with my parents serving as diplomats between warring factions. In the end, Laura had accepted on the condition that there would be no discussion of financial matters during dinner. Dad opened the door, his voice carrying down the hall. "Merry Christmas. Come in, come in." Tyler entered first, now 12, and noticeably taller than last year. "Hi, Grandpa. Merry Christmas." He spotted me in the kitchen doorway. "Uncle Ambrose." His genuine enthusiasm as he rushed to show me his newest app project on his phone warmed my heart. Laura followed more slowly, her expression guarded, but not overtly hostile. She nodded a curt greeting in my direction before embracing our mother. "The house looks nice," she offered, a small olive branch. Dinner preparations continued with everyone finding their roles. Laura helped set the table while Tyler assisted Dad with carrying dishes. Melanie and I exchanged glances across the kitchen, silent communication passing between us. So far, so good. When we finally gathered around the table, Dad stood for his traditional toast. "To family," he said simply, raising his glass, "and to new beginnings." We all raised our glasses, even Laura, though her smile remained tight. As we began passing dishes, an unexpected moment of tension arose when the mashed potatoes reached Laura at the same time as the gravy boat reached me. There was a brief, awkward pause as everyone remembered last year's catastrophic comment about serving. Then Tyler, with timing that could not have been coached, took the serving spoon from his mother and turned to me. "Uncle Ambrose, would you like me to serve you first? You made these, right?" The simple gesture, so clearly intended to right a past wrong, brought a lump to my throat. "Thank you, Tyler. That's very thoughtful." As Tyler carefully spooned potatoes onto my plate, I caught Laura watching him with an unreadable expression. When he finished and turned to her, she squeezed his shoulder gently, a silent acknowledgement of his kindness. The meal progressed with cautious conversation. We discussed safe topics, Tyler's school projects, Dad's woodworking hobby, Melanie's and my wedding plans for the coming spring. Laura spoke little, but listened attentively, occasionally offering brief comments or questions that suggested she was making an effort to engage. After dinner, as we moved to the living room for gift exchange, Mom pulled me aside. "Your sister's been seeing a therapist," she whispered. "Has been for a few months now. She didn't want me to tell you, but I thought you should know she's trying." This unexpected information shifted something in my perception of Laura. The sister I knew would have considered therapy beneath her, a sign of weakness rather than strength. That she was seeking help suggested a level of self-awareness I hadn't given her credit for. The gift exchange was modest compared to previous years. We had all agreed to focus on thoughtfulness rather than extravagance. I had carefully selected books related to Tyler's coding interests, along with a subscription to an online programming course. For Laura, after much deliberation, I had chosen a professional portfolio and planner, a practical acknowledgement of her new working life. When Laura opened her gift, she examined it silently for a long moment. "This is actually perfect for my job," she finally said, meeting my eyes briefly. "Thank you." It wasn't effusive gratitude, but from Laura, it was significant progress. Her gift to me was equally telling, a simple framed photograph of Tyler and me from a recent weekend visit, caught in a moment of laughter as we worked on a project together. The frame bore a small engraved plate, "Family Bonds." I looked up in surprise to find Laura watching me uncertainly. "Tyler picked out the frame," she said, deflecting credit, "but I thought you might like the picture." "I do," I assured her, genuinely touched. "Very much." As the evening wound down, Laura approached me while the others were distracted with dessert preparations. "Can we talk outside for a minute?" she asked, already reaching for her coat. On the front porch, away from family ears, Laura hugged herself against the December chill. "I'm not going to apologize," she began bluntly. I braced myself for confrontation, but she continued in an unexpected direction. "At least, not with words. They seem inadequate, and honestly, I'm still working through a lot with my therapist about why I did what I did." She looked out at the darkened street rather than at me. "But I want you to know, I'm trying to be better. For Tyler. For myself." "That's good to hear," I said carefully. "My therapist says I developed unhealthy patterns because I was always rescued from consequences." A hint of her old bitterness crept in. Apparently being the favorite child isn't as advantageous as it seemed. "We were both damaged by those dynamics in different ways," I offered. She nodded slowly. "Maybe so." After a pause, she added, "Tyler really looks up to you, you know. He talks about you all the time. The responsible uncle who works with computers and always keeps his promises." The implied comparison to herself hung in the air, but for once, Laura didn't seem resentful of it. "He's a great kid," I said sincerely. "You've done some things right." A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "One or two, perhaps." She straightened, signaling the end of our conversation. "Anyway, I just wanted you to know I'm working on things. It's going to take time." "Time is something we all have," I replied. As we rejoined the family inside, I felt a sense of closure that had eluded me for the past year. Not everything was resolved, perhaps it never would be completely, but we were moving forward rather than remaining trapped in old patterns. Later that evening, as Melanie and I drove home, she asked, "How are you feeling about everything?" I considered the question carefully. "Hopeful, I think. Not naive, but hopeful." "That's a good place to be," she agreed, squeezing my hand. The past year had taught me painful but necessary lessons about family, boundaries, and self-respect. I had learned that true family support flows from love, not obligation. That healthy boundaries aren't selfish but essential. That standing up for yourself doesn't mean abandoning others, just refusing to be abandoned yourself. Most importantly, I had learned that it's never too late to change destructive patterns, to heal old wounds, and to build something better from the rubble of broken expectations. As we pulled into our apartment complex, I thought about the journey ahead: marriage to Melanie, building our own family, continuing to navigate the complicated relationships with my parents and sister. None of it would be perfect or easy, but for the first time in years, I felt equipped to face those challenges with integrity and strength. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took advantage of your generosity? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below, and let me know if you think I made the right choice by finally setting boundaries. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if it resonated with you. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is having the courage to say no when necessary.